Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Constant Creator. I am your host, Eunice Smirnov, and I'm here with an amazing guest. She's been in so many incredible productions, one of which I got to see, which is Falsettos. She's also in Bright Star and Cinderella. Audrey Cardwell, I'm so happy that you're here with me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
So, how has everything been? Like, on a just full honesty, how has the last year been? What have you been up to? And just like, what kind of ride has it been for you?
Well, I think like a lot of people, it's been a wild ride and there have been a ton of fluctuations. There's really good days, really bad days. It really just
Right.
depends. I think a lot of us are in the same boat and it's just we're taking it day by day. But I mean, overall, I feel like I've started in the last 6 months, especially really settling into life, this kind of new reality. But I feel like I've finally found ways to kind of funnel my creativity. I'm starting to feel good, like making self tapes, which
Yeah.
like when we're used to auditioning I mainly do theater, so I'm not auditioning frequently, for television and film. I actually am doing that more now in quarantine than I ever was before. When you go from auditioning like in a room and then you have to do everything in front of a camera, it's very uncomfortable. It's a really difficult
Right.
shift. It's something that, I've talked to a lot of my friends about, and I think a lot of people are struggling with. It's like every time I have to make a tape, it becomes insufferable. I become miserable. I hate everything I do. I'm untalented. It just becomes this cycle
Right.
of
Yeah.
terror. Anyway, but I feel like I'm starting to kind of find my joy in all of this, in performing and in the artistic creation again, even though I'm not, in the room with anybody, which is the hardest part of all. But, yeah, pretty good. I have to say, pretty good
That's
now. We're
good.
doing good now. The beginning was really tough. I went through a couple months where I was like, I'm no longer an actor. Yeah, I'm just not an actor anymore. I'm not doing
Mm.
that. I moving on to something that's stable. It just kind of threw
Oh,
everything up
wow.
into the air. And so I was like, I guess I'm not an actor anymore. It's like I was almost too hurt by everything,
Mm.
not I was hurting by what had happened and
Yeah.
or because of what had happened. And so I was just kind of like pushing my artistic side and my creativity away. And I was like, I
Mm.
don't do that anymore. Great. I don't do that anymore. Really just because I was sad and didn't want to deal with being sad.
Right. Yeah.
But we worked through that, and of course I'm still an actor. There's just no getting away from it.
Right.
I'm a creative person, and that is what it is.
Is there sort of a difference when you're not like being able to funnel energy from any team that's there, or is it like better because you're less nervous or anything like that?
It's a huge difference. Yes, exactly what you said. The energy and just being in a room with people and kind of, having that space, getting to sing with a live piano. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it's been
Right.
a long time since I've done that,
Yeah.
but a year about, yeah. And yeah, just feeding off of the energy, getting to play in the room, getting to have a dialogue where you're not on a lag on Zoom.
Mm.
It's very, very different. And it's hard to, like what you said about, maybe you're not as nervous when you make the self tapes. That is an element of it. But something else I find is that because there are no nerves, there's really not a ton of adrenaline. And so it's almost harder to kind of like goose yourself up for it, like when you're going in or when I'm going into a room, I'm sitting outside, I'm getting ready, I'm like getting focused and whatever, and my adrenaline starts to pump. And then I go in and I have all of that energy within me, kind of like buzzing and amping everything up. And of course, sometimes, it doesn't work to your advantage, but a lot of times it
Right.
does. There's not that like high energy vibe that happens when you're in the room. And
Right.
I've also found that having unlimited time to do unlimited takes is actually a
Worse.
huge, yeah, it's just so much worse because I will sit there and do the same scene 18 times because, I'm nitpicking and I'm like, well, that little moment, I could tweak that moment, I can make that better, I can make that better. Whereas when you go in, you just do it and you bless and release and you walk out and that's it. So I think a lot of artists struggle with perfectionism, and
Mm.
being a perfectionist is a little bit frustrating in these times because I'm like, well, no, it has to be literally flawless. Whereas, like I said, when you're in a room, you do it and it's done and you move on. So
Right.
it's definitely it's a different experience, something really that's difficult to get used to.
Hmm.
But, we adjust, we grow, we figure out a way to persevere. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do now.
And when you mean that like you were thinking about completely cutting off being an actress, were you actually considering like going into other work? Did you have any particular like real opportunities or ideas that you ended up turning down?
Well, not real opportunities, but I also, to be fair, never really sought it out. I did really think about going back to school. I started looking up grad programs that are completely unrelated to theater. And I have
Hmm.
my BFA I got my undergrad in musical theater, which makes going to grad school not impossible, but just there's an added challenge because there are a lot of prerequisites required for, things that aren't acting, basically. Anything
Sure.
that isn't acting, I was kind of just toying with and looking into other like career paths. If I was going to go back to school, I wanted to go back for mental health counseling.
Hmm.
And that really is, well, one of two things that I feel like I could and would want to do. And the other one is speech and language pathology, which I actually considered going to school for first go round, when I was in high school.
Okay.
I was like, if I don't do theater, I'll do speech and language pathology because I grew up with a lot of vocal problems.
Hmm.
And so I feel, I, my speech therapist as when I was in high school truly changed my life and gave me my career essentially because my
Wow.
voice was totally, and this was just a speech therapist. She wasn't my voice teacher or anything, but she changed my life and she left such an impact on me. And I know what it feels like to struggle to speak, and of course there are so many other issues that people deal with other than what I had, which was just nodules and
Hmm.
polyps
Wow.
galore. Anyway, that's the only other thing that I feel connected to. And, when kind of looking around, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do something else, it has to be something that I'm connected to
Right.
because up until this point I've only done the thing that I love more than anything in the world, so I at
Right.
least need to find some other thing that I feel is kind of laced into my heart a little bit to some capacity.
Hmm.
And so that was it. Anyway, that was a very long tangent to say I looked into all of those things and was, had all my like little schools and my like application pages that I didn't start, by the way, but I had ready to start when I
Plants.
was wanted to, like bookmarked on my computer, and I
Yeah.
would look at them every day and be like, okay, I need this, I need this. Anyway, none of that happened because I was awakened, as it were, back to reality, which is now I'm going to do what I've been doing and I'm going to keep doing it. This is all I want to do.
All right. Did you have a
Yeah.
moment that you like sat down and were like, you know what? Not no, I have to stick with what I love.
There was a shift. Yes. I'm ashamed to say that I cannot remember what I was watching, but I was watching a virtual concert. I think I had some friends in it. It's so funny to me that the moment overpowered what I was looking at. And so we'll blame that for my inability to recall what I was watching.
Yeah.
But I was
Okay.
watching something and it was a virtual concert. And it was, I mean, I just remember it being very random and odd that was the thing that triggered me. But anyway, so yes, I was watching this performance and I just, felt the tears kind of streaming
Mm.
down my face. And I was like, I'm crying. Oh my God, I'm feeling. And it was literally like, you know, I was cracking open and being washed with all the sadness and feelings that I had really been avoiding
Right.
for months. And it was just then a full breakdown of, weeping tears. And then it kind of turned into laughter because I was like, what's happening to me? I'm having feelings, do I
Yeah.
don't know if you're a fan of Jim Carrey's The Grinch. It's one of my favorite movies. But when he starts
Yes.
to cry and he's like, I'm leaking and
Yeah.
I feel all fuzzy inside. That's how I was. And then I just sobbed and laughed and sobbed and laughed. And it was really, that was a moment of awakening. And I felt like all of a sudden I was standing in the sunlight and my body was like buzzing with energy and feelings again. And that's just grief. And that's what I came to realize, is that I was just experiencing my own little personal bubble artistic grief for all that we all lost, all that I lost, the things that I was going to do that I didn't get to do, and also the frustration of having to all of a sudden shift my whole life and figure out, okay, what am I gonna do, and how am I gonna make money, and
Right.
I was just frustrated, and I was pissed, I was sad, I was all the things. And that virtual concert that I can't quite recall gave me the gift of my feelings and my awareness again. And it was a beautiful moment, for
Thank you
sure.
to
Even though I
whatever it
can't
was.
remember. I know.
Yeah.
Thank you to whatever it was. I'll remember someday. I need to go back into my calendar and look at, because I kind of remember the gist of when it was. So I'm sure I can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I saw the Jagged Little Pill virtual concert I think it was in December.
Yeah.
And that was like, I think I'd also been kind of hiding those feelings. And I was like, oh wow, like I really, really miss getting to watch it and being a part of
Yeah.
that experience.
Exactly.
Definitely like kind of woke something up in me again,
For
for
sure.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's so, the experience of watching a show in a theater is so singular. There's nothing else like it. That's why, the art form is enduring and ever changing, and always, it's been present since its invention.
Right.
And because of that, it's almost, you can't, it's like riding a roller coaster. Like, as it's happening, you're like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And then when it's done, you have this memory of, I mean, I don't know if you hate roller coasters. I'm so sorry for using this
No,
analogy.
I love roller coasters.
Okay, great. We were listening to a podcast about when Disneyland switched Tower of Terror to Guardians of the Galaxy. So I guess I'm just in like ride mode. I love Disneyland.
I loved, yeah.
Just all the parks.
It's a winter tradition. Disneyland is a winter, like Christmas tradition for us.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So anyway, seeing a show is the same, where when it's over, you're like, oh my gosh, you have the memories of it. And you think, great, I can't wait until next time. But when you're in it, there's nothing else that's like it. You can only have the experience when you're in it. And because of that, I was able to really tap into like out of sight, out of mind. And so I just put away, I wasn't even pining for it, because I just put it all so far to the side. I was like, nope, I'm just not even remembering it. I mean, there were seriously months there where I wouldn't even watch, videos of anything theater related. I wouldn't look at pictures. Like, if I had memories from shows I'd done, I'd be like, anyway, that's a past life, moving on. I mean, I was truly compartmentalizing to the extreme. And I think, it's just a coping mechanism, and what a lot of us had to do.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot. It's definitely tiring to kind of block that out. So
for sure. I feel much better now that I've unleashed my feelings.
Definitely.
Yeah, it had to happen.
Did you have like some little thing that you were particularly proud of? Just some little habit that you changed, or something that you got to do during this time that you're like, you know what? At least through this experience, I got to do this thing.
I think there's a few things, shockingly. The first is that I started building websites very low key, very amateur at the beginning of quarantine, just because it was something that I liked to do. I like to fiddle with my own website. And so I put out like a little Instagram blast to my friends. And I said, hey, if anybody wants me to update their website, or if you want a website, I'll do it for super cheap, as I'm still learning how to navigate it and do it for real. Let me know. And so then that's kind of just grown and developed. And I've really been working on projects consistently for a year, actually, in building websites. And it is really the only other creative endeavor that I've ever poured so much time and energy into, other than theater. And, it's like theater adjacent things, of course. But it feels good to learn a new skill. It feels good to cultivate, my creativity in a very different way. My hand does hurt. I will say that. Like, it really hurts my hands, and carpal tunnel is setting in, and it hurts my eyeballs. But, it's just a totally different creative, like, mind, which has been really fun to get to know. It's been fun to get to know that side of my creativity that I've just never taken the time or energy to do. And I've also picked up more students, more private students. I do voice lessons and coachings. I'll do, like, monologue coaching or scene coaching. And then I also do, like, vocal technique and voice lessons. And that's something I've just kind of done, like, sporadically through the years. Mainly, I would just wait until somebody asked me if I taught, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll teach you. And, now I'm kind of, like, reaching out and building my studio. And that feels so good and satisfying, because I get this connection and I get to work with somebody and facilitate them and their individuality and their growth. And I'm learning, of course, every time, I have a lesson. There's so much that I learn and so many ways that I grow.
Right.
And it's just really satisfying teaching. I get why teachers are like, oh, it's the most satisfying job in the world, because, it really is. There's so many benefits to reap from that. So those are just two of the things. I also have two dogs who I'm obsessed with. And I don't have anything I can say that I'm, like, proud. I mean, I guess I'm just, like, proud of how awesome they are, but, they keep me busy and occupied, and I'm thankful for them every day.
I love when you post your dogs on Instagram. I remember when you got your second dog and you were, like, so excited, because when I saw Falsettos on tour and you were talking about Fifi and everything, and she was like, the fact that you even got to bring her on tour was such a cool thing for me, because I'd never heard of anybody else doing that before.
I cannot be without that dog.
Can't
be without her.
I have a dog, so I understand.
You get it.
Getting to be home all the time, getting to do college from home, it's like, oh my God, I get to see her every single day.
I know. And I'm already getting nervous about the adjustment when we do go back out into the world for the dogs. I mean, she's going to be like, oh, hello, I thought you lived at home. Why are you leaving? She'll probably love the space, actually. She's very independent.
She likes to run around.
Yeah. She's like, get her out of here. Oh.
And do you feel like overall, like, your thoughts on being an artist and, like, as a performer have changed at all during this time?
Yes, very much so. I don't think I realized how it is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I, developed this strong separation of I'm not what I do, because I really do think that to withstand the difficulty of being an actor in New York, you really have to be so strong and resilient. And I found that the way that I was able to do that was by separating my worth and my value from my artistry and from what I do, or at least from the validation of getting a job, And so needing to have that separation was very important to me, because, I wanted to stay. I did not want my career and my auditions and my jobs or my lack of jobs to be, like, the defining thing in my life, and to be the only thing that I deeply cared about, and to be the thing that told me, are you allowed to be happy or sad today? Because, it's a struggle. It's a huge struggle for a lot of actors to find that balance. And I've seen it firsthand in so many people that I love. And it's a hard business. It's really just a hard business. And so I developed this ability to really separate myself from what I do. And because of that, I think I had kind of disconnected my creativity and my artistry from the fabric of who I am. Not intentionally. Well, intentionally in that, I needed to be resilient and remain a happy person even when I wasn't getting jobs, and find worth even when I wasn't getting jobs. But, I don't think I was, like, walking around saying, like, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. It was like, no, I am an artist, but I am also more than that.
Right.
And this my like, I'll call it a sabbatical, my brief sabbatical from even pursuing or wanting internally to be an actor at the beginning of quarantine, and then kind of having that shift was a huge change in how I view my artistry, because I realized very quickly that it is who I am. It is how I communicate. It is how I express myself. It is how I work through all the shit in my life or in the world around me. It is how I learn how I communicate. It's just how I do everything. And it just is me. I am, and it is. And I never really viewed it that way before. I really
Mm.
did have like a separation. And since coming to this new realization of what my creativity means to me and what it means to my life, has opened up my creativity to the rest of my life. Whereas I
Mm.
feel like I used to just pour it into what I do, my creative outlet, as it were.
Yeah.
Now I feel like it's going everywhere. I've had to get creative in how I'm going to make money. I've had to get creative in what am I going to do with my days. I've had to get creative with how am I going to entertain this dog today? What are we going to do when it's, raining outside and we have nowhere to go?
Right.
Creativity just is flowing everywhere now within my life. And it took life taking away my outlet for me to realize that I could put it anywhere and everywhere, my creativity, I mean.
Right.
So it's like, okay, you can't do the thing where you normally put your creativity. So now, best of luck. And for a while, the creativity shut down entirely. And I was like, I'm not an artist. And then we powered it back up. And I was like, oh, work. Okay, great. Oh my God, I can be creative everywhere. And it's coming out into my web design and my desire to learn and to be better in that creative endeavor. It's coming out in my teaching and my desire to cultivate more creative teaching, habits with my students. And it's coming out in us like painting and redoing this kitchen here.
Mm.
Like that's a creative thing. It's different. It's a
Right.
different kind that I'm not used to really doing, but it's all creative and it's all beautiful.
Yeah.
That's kind of the shift.
It makes great sense. I remember when you were doing falsettos that you gotten to meet with James Lapine and William Finn, if I'm not mistaken. Was there any like piece of advice that they gave you while you were working with them that stuck with you while doing the show, or even like up to today in particular?
Well, James was our director, and so he was present, every day of rehearsal and
Right.
all of tech. And then he came out a couple other times, to just touch base and check in on the show. So I got to work with him a lot, which was, I mean, really, I was just like, it's James Lapine. This is James
Oh my
Lapine.
God.
This is crazy.
Right.
And then William Finn, he just popped in like twice
Mhm.
he came into a rehearsal, and then he came to our opening night party. And so I didn't really get a lot of like, I went, I had a conversation with him, but I think the one conversation we had was pretty much all the interpersonal exchanges that we shared. I do remember in rehearsal, like he would come and he would like lean over and do this to James, and then James would say something. So that was
Right.
really the way he communicated in rehearsal. He seems like he's very quiet to himself kind of a guy, and it's so fun to see in the flesh a person that you've idolized and loved for so many years. I mean, so
Right.
much of William's work is like very important to me and to when I was growing up, I listened to all of his shows, ad nauseum. And it's just so cool to be like, oh my God, you made that. You made that thing that I love so much, that I've heard your name forever. And now you're standing here in front of me. This is just wild and amazing.
Right.
But let's see, with James, he's hilarious. When I auditioned for Falsettos, he was running the audition, which is, I mean, I don't really know, but I feel like it's kind of an old school Broadway kind of a thing where normally these days the casting director like comes out and like reads the list of people who were there and calls the name, grabs their headshot and resume, and then casting like, takes the actor into the audition room.
Right.
But with Falsettos, James was doing that. So James Lapine was poking his head out into the hallway of Pearl Studios and was like, okay, great. So Audrey, and then taking your resume. And I was just so taken aback by that. I was like, okay, he's like running this audition. I love it. And then as soon as I walked into the room, he was just asking me questions. Like, we weren't auditioning. He was like, great, Audrey, welcome. Where are you from? And I was like, oh, okay, we're chatting. And within a couple seconds, I realized, oh, this is on purpose. This is to, first of all, get me, out of my own head. Because so many of us go into like audition mode where we're like, I'm auditioning now and I have to remember my lyrics and I have to remember my words and blah, blah, blah. We go into like, audition mode.
Right.
And he just wanted to shake that up and, actually talk to the human being in front of him, which I felt, which I loved, that he did that. I was like, oh, this is a really brilliant way to get to know the person that's auditioning rather than just letting them stand there and sing in front of you. This is like, because that matters so much in a rehearsal room is how you get along with the actors and the director and whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was very taken with that he did. But, he just really instilled in me and reminded me the importance of simplicity. And, I mean, I can't recall one exact thing that he said, but just over and over again, that would be, kind of his guiding direction was just keep it simple, keep it authentic. Like
right.
Probably the smaller, the simpler, the better, which, of course sounds pretty basic, but it can be really easy to forget. And it can be really easy, as we're piling on characters and feelings and emotions and whatever, and we're doing falsettos, it can really be easy to like sit into the melodrama or like really hammer that joke home or whatever. And just to be reminded that less is more, and I hadn't done a show like Falsettos in, I mean, really ever, but, I've done a lot of like very stylized pieces. I did Guys and Dolls, which is, this golden age, very heightened, stylized piece. I did Cinderella, which is Cinderella. I did Bright Star, which has like a bit of a natural kind of essence to it, but it's still very much in a period and very much in a, you're in this thick accent. So it was just a really beautiful piece to explore in its simplicity and in its kind of like contemporary like nuance, if that makes sense.
I was actually going to ask about Cinderella and just sort of the fact that it's such a quintessential story. It's something that most of us grew up sort of dreaming about and knowing about, and it has just this like very glittery sort of fairy tale energy to it. And so to know it so well and then to actually get to be a part of it, did it feel different than other shows that you've been a part of?
It did, in its magical kind of sparkly magic, and to being in a show that kids will come to and that kids will bring, or parents will bring their kids to, is really special. And there's just something, in the energy of, a Saturday matinee when you can hear kids talking throughout the performance. I think sometimes it's bothersome to people. I think it's so amazing. I'm like, this is some little 4-year-old's first theatrical experience. Like, yes, she's talking and screaming, but she's also here. So we love that.
Yeah.
And there was just such a magical just glow around the show. And I loved Cinderella growing up. I loved the Brandy version, was the first one I ever watched.
I love that version. It going on Disney Plus was like a dream come true for me.
Thank God. Maybe I'm gonna go watch that when we hang up. It's so good. It's been a while
Please
since
do.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the inspiration. And I'd seen, the Julie Andrews version, and I'd seen the Broadway show a bunch too. And so then when I was auditioning for it, and I went to a dance call and got a call back, and then the next day they were like, hey, they want you to go in and read for Cinderella. I truly thought it was a mistake, and I said, no, I think they meant Gabrielle. They must be mixing up the names, Gabrielle and then Ella, because they call her Ella. I was like, I think this is a mistake. They must have meant Gabrielle. And they were like, no, they meant Cinderella. So go read for Cinderella. And I just was stunned because, I'd never felt like I was a little princess. I was always really disheveled looking. My hair was like, my voice was basically this low, ever since I started talking. I just never had like the squeaky clean, like princess thing. I loved the movies, but like, I never thought, oh my God, like that's my role. I'm gonna play Cinderella someday or whatever. And so then getting to do it was just such a beautiful gift that I didn't even know I wanted. And of course, as soon as I was hired, I was like, this is the job. I will do the best job ever. And I was like off book within 2 days and just like could not study my script hard enough because I was
Mm,
so excited and so just beside myself that I was getting to understudy, and then I did eventually play that role.
yeah,
Yeah, just to do something that's so iconic is it's just really fun. And to do a show that people know is also really fun. And the music is so magical. I mean, it was a blast to say the least.
right. And when you did actually go on as Cinderella and like go out and stage door, were there like tons of little kids like, oh my gosh, it's you, very
Yes.
like going to Disneyland and getting to meet the princesses kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, it was
That's so
so
cute.
sweet. It was so sweet. And it was actually really fun because when I was in the ensemble, because I was originally in the ensemble, I understudied Cinderella, and then I took over and played Cinderella for a couple months, and then I went back into the ensemble.
Mm.
And my ensemble track is, I don't know if you're familiar with the costume design of the Broadway show, but I was in this periwinkle blue dress designed to mimic the cartoon Cinderella dress, the Disney
Mm.
cartoon. Because in the Disney cartoon, she's in like her little like blue thing. And then in the Broadway production, she was in a white dress for the
Right.
role. But this was my dress was the nod to the Disney version. And so I would go out and collect for Broadway Cares and we would go out in costume. And I had little girls coming up because that was like the costume that was sold in stores for Cinderella was the blue one. And
Mm.
I have so many pictures with little girls with them in their little blue Cinderella dresses matching mine that I was also wearing because they were like, "You're Cinderella! You're Cinderella!" And I was like, "I wasn't tonight, but yes, I am from the cartoon. Like, look at my dress." And so to match their little blue dresses, it was so sweet. And again, just to know that you were a part of a child's first theatrical experience, I mean, that's so special. There's just nothing better.
Absolutely. Did you
Yeah.
have like I mean, what was your first show? Like what was do you remember like what your first experience was?
Like
Like
as a kid,
yeah.
yes, it was Cats,
Okay.
which I am obsessed with still to this day.
It's incredible.
It's the best show. Anybody can fight me. It's amazing. I love Cats. I was 5 and it was, I don't know, the fifth national tour of something that was through Birmingham. It was coming through Birmingham, Alabama, where I'm from. And my mom took me and my sister. And one of the cats came up to me in the overture when they run around with the glow eyes. I
Mm.
don't know if you remember this, if you've seen it in a
I've
theater.
never seen it in a theater, but I think I remember hearing that.
Okay, yeah. So in the overture, they like take the house to black and cats run around with these glow eyes and they like
Mm.
get in your face with your glow eyes. And one of the cats came up to me with her glow eyes and was like, doing being a cat. And I was like, I love this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to be a cat.
Was that your dream? Where you're like, I want to be in Cats.
Oh,
That's
for
the
sure.
goal.
For sure. I did a production at like my hometown theater when I was 15, which was really fun, but I don't not that I don't count that, but it wasn't, as an adult, I was so young. And then yeah, I've been like pining to do it. I was actually now that, the world is in its current state and so many years have passed, I feel comfortable saying that I was cast for the tour for
Mm.
Cats.
Wow.
And I then had to turn it down because I got falsettos.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was really devastated. I actually at the start my agents called because I got Cats first and they knew. They were like, "Audrey, why are you so, they were really, my agents are incredible and they were really like, "Audrey, we're shifting, you're playing like leads. We really are only trying to get you in for these like for bigger roles because I had just played Alice in Bright Star,
Hmm.
and I don't care. I'm like, whatever. I want to work. And also this is Cats, so I don't care
Right.
if I'm, an offstage swing. That would literally never happen. I would never swing that show because I'm not that good at, oh my God, I couldn't, my brain, no. They were like, we just, we're like really pushing you for roles, and like just we were kind of, I was at a shifting point in my career, and they were like, we don't even want you to go. And I insisted. I was like, no, get me an appointment. I will go in. Let me go in for Cats.
We
And
try.
then I did, and I got it, which I was so happy. And then I didn't get to do it, and it's okay. I just knowing that I got it, knowing that I accomplished that chunk of the challenge
Right.
is satisfying enough. Like, okay, I was almost there, and then obviously life and the universe had other plans because I needed falsettos for sure.
I mean, that was like
I mean,
falsettos is so incredible. It's such a profound experience. I mean, even getting
mm-hmm.
to watch it, I rethought about the show a lot during this time of just this is how easy it is to lose people in your life and have no control.
Yeah, just carry with us the fragility of life while also remaining open because
Yeah,
it can be crippling. Like, oh my God, I can lose anybody at any moment, or we can make that a powerful, beautiful fuel to live truly each day as
absolutely.
though we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. And overall, I mean, you have a lot of different experiences doing different tours. Do you have any hopes for like if there's any changes that could be made to the process that when we come back, we re-examine and re-look at things that you hope for the future of like national tours and touring in general of what that process is like?
Yeah, definitely more. I think, well, first and foremost, we have a lot of inequality and racism and also sexism running rampant in our industry as well as really the whole
Right.
nationwide.
Yeah.
But yes, there's a lot to be done there in terms of equality, diversity, equity, and really figuring out how to redo the structure in our industry. And I can't say that I know or have an answer or even a good solution at this point because it is it's such a daunting thing. And I also don't feel that I'm, I don't know. There's so much I don't know from my personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm still learning and figuring out all that I've missed and all the ways that I could have and can be better in the future. But aside from that, which I think is the most important, and this is kind of like an offshoot of that, just more advocating for the artist and
Mm-hmm.
from the artist. I know there's so many occasions where I've been present or something has happened, to me personally that I just kind of like roll over and let it happen because you kind of have to. I should just be quiet and be grateful. Be quiet and be grateful is like kind of what we're conditioned to think in this industry, especially because you work so hard to get a job and so frequently you don't. And then when you do, it's like I don't want to make waves in the middle of my job that I'm so excited about. But I feel that there's a shift happening and starting to happen there as well, where we're really going to see a lot more stronger stance from artists. There's people who've been, I'm not saying that it's that the way I've been doing it is the way other people have been doing it. No, there are people who've been fighting this fight for years and years and have dedicated their lives and their careers to it. I do feel like there needs to be, and I hope there can be a huge shift in respect for proper compensation for and just more advocating for the artists,
Right.
because we really are the bottom of the barrel artistically
Mm.
in our hierarchy and in our system. I'm hoping there can be some shifts around that as well.
I've
Yeah.
heard a lot of that sort of sentiment of don't bite the hand that feeds you. I definitely do feel like I hear it in sort of entertainment and in creative jobs specifically because of the fact that if you have a regular 9 to 5 job, you have that stability
Mhm.
And often people feel like they can ask for more.
Yeah.
But when you, like you said, you don't get it as much and you don't get jobs as often, people are going to say like, why are you being ungrateful? And
Yeah.
why, you got it. Isn't this what you wanted? It's like, yeah,
Exactly.
it's what I wanted, but I, still have to understand what I'm worth and understand, what I deserve.
Right. We are also in, our entire industry is basically like one massive, except for like a few lucky times, gig economy, gig market. Like we
Mm,
go from contract to contract. Like, yes, sometimes we can sit in a show for 2 years or, I mean, I do know people who've been in shows for like 10 years, and that is, of course, the dream, but that requires the perfect combination of so many elements. And that is a very rare thing to get into a show that you can stay in for that
mm,
long. So, we're constantly seeking new employment. And because of that, if we're at a job and we're like, well, we had this issue and I want to be paid more, or I want a raise, or I want this, if you begin to cultivate a reputation of being difficult, that's going to spread of being difficult, which it isn't even being difficult. That's going to, I think we all live in fear that that's going to like spread throughout the industry and then we'll never get hired again. And
right.
because we need to be hired a lot, because again, we rarely get these long-term, like super long-term jobs, it's feels like everything's always, everything is a threat to the stability of your already very unstable
Mm,
life.
mhm.
It's going to take, a industry-wide shift in artists have to start asking, demanding what they deserve,
Right.
and like I feel like there's so many times where I'm like, well, I don't want to do this gig for, $5 an hour, but there is someone who will. There's like that saying that there's always someone who will take that job.
Mm,
And what I think I really want is a shift across the industry where there isn't somebody who will take that job, where all of us know that we're worth more than that. So that is where the change can happen, is when producers or directors or the people with money get get no's from the actors. They're like, no, 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 no. These problems are perpetuated by the constant acceptance of the jobs from somebody, or, and I'm saying the job, and of course, I mean any other kind of term or condition that comes with a contract, not
mhm.
necessarily just salary. But, I really want to get to a place where no actors will take those like those jobs that are insulting to our artistry, that are insulting to our, you know, the degrees that we have in
Right.
this industry, or the training that we have, or the experience that we have. It's going to take a lot of people saying, no, we will not accept that. And I hope we can get to that place.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that directors and producers and people putting shows together can afford to pay more.
Girl,
So in the end, it's like
hello.
they
Come
can.
on now. They can. And they're just going to try not to, which I get it. I understand. I understand. But, we can't just bend to it forever.
I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to, like, this idea that somehow the reason that they're paying you little is somehow because they have to. It's like, no, because the whole point of the system that we're in is that you have to get paid less than the value that you're worth.
Right.
But it's
Because then
because
they're going to make a lot of money. Oh,
it
man.
feels like a sort of a veil is kind of put over that whole aspect of the industry.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't know what experiences that you've had personally feeling. I wish that I could kind of see through that a little bit more and feel like I have my hand in the pot.
Oh, all the time. Because it does. It feels like this super secret world. And I'm like, well, wait, isn't that like the engine that drives this whole train that I'm on? Like, I would love to know what exactly is going on for sure. There's an amazing organization that Eden Espinoza actually founded with Karen Olivo. There
Mm-hmm.
might have been another founder that I'm struggling to remember, but it's called Affect Change. And they on Instagram put up, like, they're basically doing just that, like breaking down the wall that stands between us and all of that information and exposing it, and like talking about the in-depth finances of all of the theater companies and all of the producers and all of
Wow.
the teams and stuff within the Broadway industry. And I highly recommend checking it out. Anybody checking it out, it's really informative and really, really helpful. And that came out of this quarantine as well. So there's just good stuff happening. We're all feeling the change percolating, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that there are these amazing projects and movements that are in the works because this is what we have to pay our attention to now.
Yeah,
So I'm grateful for
correct.
that at least.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. But thank you so much for doing this with me.
Of
I
course.
really appreciate it. If there's anything that you want to wrap, I mean, any websites that people can look to that you did that maybe if they enjoy them, they might want to, check your services out or anything
I
like
mean,
that.
I did my own, and pretty soon I'm going to put up like a page that's dedicated solely to my websites and my building websites and what have you. So that will be up soon, but you can look at mine for the time being.
Great.
AudreyCardwell.com.
But thank you so much. I love talking with you,
I love talking with
and
you too. Thank you. You always have the best, most thoughtful questions.
I appreciate it. I think that the important thing that comes out of these episodes is just the idea that no matter where we are all constantly creating. We all have our own forms of creativity that we can use in this time, and that's what it's all about. So
Absolutely.